Living more awake. Buddhist wisdom. We live in a time where everything moves fast. There is always something to chase. Money, career, status, the next goal, the next plan. There is always something to worry about. Bills, relationships, health, the future. The body is busy. The mind is busier. From the moment we open our eyes in the morning to the moment we close them at night, there is barely a gap. And in a life like that, staying awake, truly awake, is one of the hardest things to do. I am talking about a kind of wakefulness that goes deeper than being alert or energized. The kind where you know what you are doing while you are doing it. Where you know what you are feeling while you are feeling it. Where you can see where your words are coming from before they leave your mouth. Where you can look at what you are chasing and honestly ask whether it is worth chasing at all. That kind of wakefulness is rare, because everything in daily life pulls you in the opposite direction. Into reacting, into rushing, into moving from one thing to the next, without ever pausing to ask, am I actually here for any of this? The Buddha saw this very clearly, and he did not say that what we pursue is worthless. He did not tell us to stop living our lives. What he said, over and over, in many different ways across 45 years of teaching, is something simpler and more honest. Slow down. Look at what you are doing. See what you have been missing while you were rushing. Because if you go through this entire life with a mind that was always somewhere else, always busy, always chasing the next thing, then the question worth asking is, was this life truly lived at all? That is why he taught us to wake up. And waking up, in his teaching, is not about suddenly becoming a saint or reaching some perfect state of mind. It is something much more honest than that. The gradual, step-by-step clearing of the fog that keeps us from seeing what is right in front of us. It requires something real from you, honest self-examination, sustained effort, and the willingness to look at yourself and your life without turning away from what you find. And it begins with something very simple: remembering what is true. In the middle of a busy life, it is easy to forget some very basic things. We forget that we are aging. We forget that our health is not guaranteed. We forget that the people we love will not always be here. We forget that we ourselves will not always be here. These are not depressing thoughts. They are facts. And the forgetting of these facts is, according to the Buddha, one of the main reasons we stay asleep. In the Upajjhatthana Sutta, the Buddha gave a specific word for this forgetting. He called it intoxication. He described how human beings become intoxicated with their own youth, intoxicated with their own health, intoxicated with the simple fact of being alive. And because of that intoxication, he said, they conduct themselves carelessly in body, in speech, and in mind. Think about what that word means. Intoxication. It is like being drunk on something without knowing you are drunk. You move through your days assuming everything will stay the way it is. You assume there will always be more time. You assume the people around you will always be here. And because of those assumptions, you rush. You postpone what matters. You spend your energy on things that, if you stopped long enough to look at them, you might not choose at all. The Buddha's way of helping us slow down, of cutting through this intoxication, was to teach 5 reflections that he said every person should sit with every single day. I am subject to aging. I have not gone beyond aging. I am subject to illness. I have not gone beyond illness. I am subject to death. I have not gone beyond death. I will grow different, separate from all that is dear and appealing to me. I am the owner of my actions, heir to my actions, born of my actions, related through my actions, and have my actions as my arbitrator. Whatever I do, for good or for evil, to that will I fall heir. He did not teach these for monks alone. He specifically said they should be contemplated frequently, whether one is a woman or a man, lay or ordained. And the reason he gave is direct. When you reflect on these truths often, that intoxication with youth, that intoxication with health, that intoxication with life, will either be entirely abandoned or grow weaker. Those are his words. What is happening here is something deeper than simply accepting that life is impermanent. The Buddha is pointing to a fundamental shift in how you relate to your entire existence. As long as the intoxication is running, every choice you make, every relationship you build, every goal you pursue, is built on a foundation that does not match reality. You are building on the assumption that things will stay, and they will not. When you see that clearly, not just as an idea, but as something you feel in your bones, the entire structure of how you live begins to reorganize itself. You start asking different questions. If I am going to age, if I am going to die, if everything I love is going to change, then what actually matters? What have I been overlooking while I was busy? What have I been treating as urgent that is not important? And what have I been treating as unimportant that is actually the most essential thing in my life? This reorganization is not something you force. It happens on its own when the seeing is clear enough. You stop gripping so tightly. You stop carrying things that were never worth the weight. The seeing itself does the work. Among these 5 reflections, the last one opens a whole new dimension. The first 4 are about what will happen to you. The 5th is about what you are doing right now. I am the owner of my actions, heir to my actions, born of my actions, related through my actions, and have my actions as my arbitrator. You are not just the owner of your actions. You are the heir to them. You are born of them. Your actions are your arbitrator, the one thing that ultimately determines what becomes of you. Every word you speak is planting something. Every choice is setting something in motion. There is no moment where this process pauses. And once that awareness lands, a question naturally follows. If everything I do carries this kind of weight, then what have I been doing with my days? Have I been paying attention, or have I been moving too fast to notice? This is what happens when you slow down enough to look clearly. You start seeing things about your own life that you could not see while you were rushing. The Buddha understood this. In the Noble Eightfold Path, he wove together how you train your mind with how you speak, how you act, and how you sustain your life as parts of one complete practice. Right speech, right action, and right livelihood are not preparation for something deeper. They are the practice itself. Every conversation, every decision, every day at work is a place where you are either awake or asleep. The path runs through every part of your day. And when you start paying attention to these parts of your life, to the words you say and the actions you take, something revealing happens. You discover that much of the time, you do not actually know where your words are coming from. You think you do, but when you look closely, you find layers underneath that you did not expect. What you thought was honesty might be a need to be right. What you thought was care might be a need to control. What you thought was standing up for yourself might be pride wearing a different name. What the Buddha is revealing here goes beyond being more mindful in a casual sense. He is showing you how much of what you call your life is actually running on patterns you have never examined. Layers of conditioning, layers of habit, layers of reaction that have been operating in the background for years, shaping your words, your decisions, your relationships, without you ever seeing them clearly. And the moment you do see them, something shifts. You are no longer driven by them blindly. You have a choice. And that choice, that space between the impulse and the action, is what waking up feels like in the middle of daily life. The transformation does not come from trying harder to be a good person. It comes from seeing more clearly what has been driving you all along. As you keep practicing this kind of awareness, you start noticing patterns. You begin to see that certain situations consistently bring out carelessness in your speech. Certain states of mind, like tiredness, frustration, or insecurity, lead to words and actions you would not choose if you were fully present. These patterns reveal the deeper currents that run your life when you are not paying attention. And seeing them is itself a powerful step in clearing the fog. Right action and right livelihood point in the same direction. How you act, how you make decisions, how you earn your money, all of it shapes who you are becoming. How you live in the world and how you live inside yourself feed each other constantly. They are one life, one practice, one path. And this is where something deeper begins to show itself. When you start paying attention to your words and your actions, when you start tracing them back to their source, you notice that every action starts somewhere inside you. Every word rises from a state of mind. The way you speak when you are afraid is different from the way you speak when you are at peace. The choices you make when greed is running are different from the choices you make when clarity is present. The more honestly you look at how you live, the more clearly you see. The fog is not only out there, in the busyness and the rushing. It is also inside, in the mind itself. And if you want to clear it, that is where you also need to look. This is the deepening that happens naturally. You slow down. You pay attention to your speech, your actions, your choices. You trace them back to their source, and you find yourself looking at your own mind. When you look there, the Buddha says you find something important. Your mind is workable. Your mental states are not fixed. They are not who you are. They arise based on conditions, and you can influence those conditions. This matters deeply because most of us live as if our inner states are simply things that happen to us. Anger comes, and we identify with it completely. Fear comes, and we feel defined by it. The Buddha is pointing to something different. Anger arises when certain conditions are present. Change the conditions, and anger does not find ground to take root. Compassion, too, arises when certain conditions are present. Cultivate those conditions, and compassion grows. In the Samvara Sutta, the Buddha laid out 4 kinds of effort that work directly with the conditions of the mind. The effort to restrain, guarding your senses, learning to meet what you experience without being immediately pulled into craving or resistance. The effort to give up, when unwholesome thoughts have arisen, recognizing them and releasing them. The effort to develop, actively cultivating the qualities that lead to awakening, like mindfulness, investigation, energy, tranquility, and equanimity. And the effort to preserve, when something wholesome has taken root, protecting it, giving it room to grow. The image that brings all of this together is a gardener. A gardener guards the garden from harm, that is restraint. They pull the weeds that have already taken root, that is giving up. They plant and water good seeds, that is development. And they protect what has grown, that is preservation. Your mind is that garden, and your daily attention is what determines what takes root in it. What the Buddha is pointing to here is something that reaches into the foundation of all your experience. Every moment of suffering Every moment of peace, every moment of confusion or clarity passes through the mind. The quality of your mind shapes the quality of everything you experience. When you learn to work with the conditions of your mind, you are not just changing a habit or improving a skill. You are changing your relationship with the whole of your life. That is the depth of what this practice opens up when you stay with it. But it is daily work. It asks you to pay attention to what you are feeding and what you are starving. Each moment of that attention is a small clearing of the fog. And over time, small clearings add up. You do not need to transform your mind overnight. You just need to keep showing up, keep looking, keep choosing what to nourish with care and honesty. But anyone who has practiced this honestly knows something else too. You can practice it for a day, a week, even a month. And then, slowly, without noticing, the rushing comes back. The busyness fills in the gaps. The intoxication returns. You look up one day and realize you have been running on autopilot again for weeks. So the question that matters most is this: what keeps you from slipping back? The Buddha had a word for this. He called it Appamāda. It is usually translated as heedfulness or diligence. Those translations are accurate, but they do not carry the full weight of what the Buddha placed on this single quality. In the Appamāda Sutta, he went out of his way to elevate Appamāda above everything else, using image after image to make the point unmistakable. He said, "Just as the footprint of every animal fits inside the footprint of an elephant, all skillful qualities are rooted in Appamāda. Just as all the rafters of a house lean toward the peak and meet at the peak, all skillful qualities meet in Appamāda. Just as all great rivers flow toward the ocean and find their end in the ocean, all skillful qualities flow toward and find their end in Appamāda." He used 10 analogies in a row to make the same point. Appamāda is not one quality among others. It is the ground that everything else grows from. Without it, nothing holds. In the Dhammapada, verse 21, he said, "Heedfulness is the path to the deathless. Heedlessness is the path to death. Those who are heedful do not die. The heedless are as if already dead." You can be breathing, eating, working, talking, and still be living the kind of life the Buddha called death, moving through your days without awareness, without attention, without any real presence. That is the fog at its thickest, and Appamāda is what keeps clearing it. So what is Appamāda in lived experience? It is the continuous awareness that this life is fragile, that your actions matter, and that the time to practice is now. It is what keeps the 5 daily reflections from becoming a routine you rush through each morning. It is what keeps your attention to speech and action from fading into good intentions. It is what keeps the work of tending your inner garden alive across your whole day. And here is where the journey comes full circle. Appamāda is not something you create from scratch through willpower. It comes alive when the 5 daily reflections truly land inside you, when the intoxication with youth, health, and life begins to weaken, when the understanding of impermanence moves from something you know in your head to something you feel in your whole being. In that feeling, you do not need anyone to tell you to slow down. You slow down because you see clearly what is at stake. In daily life, Appamāda looks simple. It is the moment you catch yourself thinking, "I will start tomorrow," and you come back to right now. It is the moment you are about to say something careless, and you pause. It is the moment a feeling of genuine kindness arises in you, and instead of letting it pass unnoticed, you stay with it. You let it grow. And there is something else worth saying here. Maybe your life right now is not easy. Maybe you are carrying something heavy, a loss you have not recovered from, a struggle that seems to have no end, an illness, a relationship that is breaking down, a feeling of being stuck with no clear way forward. Maybe you have been carrying it for a long time, and some days it takes everything you have just to keep going. The Buddha did not teach waking up as a way to make all of that disappear. He taught it as a way to be with whatever is here, clearly, honestly, without piling more suffering on top of what is already there. Living more awake does not mean reaching a state where nothing hurts anymore. What the Buddha taught asks more of you than that. It asks you to meet whatever comes with a mind that is present, that sees clearly, that chooses how to respond instead of being carried away. And that seeing, that choosing, is something you build through your own effort, day after day. Waking up is not something that happens all at once. It is not a single moment that changes everything forever. It is what happens when you clear one layer of fog and see a little more clearly. Then another layer, then another. Some days you see more. Some days the fog comes back. But every time you return to awareness, every time you remember what is true, every time you choose to pay attention instead of drifting, you are doing exactly what the Buddha said this rare human life is for. That is the path he laid out. Not a path away from your life, a path through it, with open eyes and a mind that is willing to see. One day at a time, one moment at a time.